Patim Suragurum Vande Jagat Karanam Vande Pannagabhushanam Mrigadharam Vande Pashunam Patim Vande Surya Shashankavainayanam Vande Mukunda Priyam Vande Bhaktajanashayam Chavaradham Vande Shivam Shankaram. Hari Om. Om Namah Shivaya, and welcome to Hinduism in Focus. We are speaking on the glories of Lord Shiva and Mahashivratri. And yesterday we left off at the point where we were philosophically analyzing what we call a union of Shiva and Parvati, which commonly the occasion is referred to as the marriage of Shiva and Parvati. I was putting that into context philosophically for you to see the real gist. And yesterday we saw also that Sanatana Dharma is the only tradition and civilization in this universe that when all returns to its source, we celebrate that thing as Shivratri. And that is a unique feature of this tradition and of this civilization, as it were. Today we are continuing to speak of the glories and of course the universal relevance of Mahashivratri and Shiva's worship. And I want us to look at a very popular shloka which becomes a prayer now in our community, but it comes from Tulsi Ramayana in his invocation of the first chapter, second shloka. Bhavani Shankaro Vandhe Shraddha Vishwasarupinau Yabhyam Vinana Pashyanti Siddha Swantastamishwaram. That Bhavani Shankaro Vande, that Tulsi says, I greet and I salute Bhavani and Shankara, that is Shiva and Parvati. I see Bhava refers to Shiva, right? But he did not use the word Bhava here, but he used Bhavani. But from where Bhavani comes? Bhavani comes from Bhava. So Bhava is Shiva and Bhavani is Parvati. So I salute Bhavani. When he says I salute Bhavani, if Bhavani comes from the source which is Bhava, it means that Bhavani now is the same with the source. If you and I have a spark of life in us, where that life came from, is that not the same that I am? For example, if there is a huge bonfire, we are in this process and we will soon celebrate Pagwa or Holi, and we set up a bonfire. And if some fire from that bonfire moves by the wind and starts light some other materials next to it, the fire that is lighting those materials, smaller fire, and the fire that is lighting the bonfire, is it not one and the same? Of course it is. And that is why in Hindu philosophy, we never say that we are separated. Schools of thoughts will teach that, but they ultimately come back to the one point that even if you are separated, like in some school of thought in dualism, yet whatever you said is separated has come from that which you claim you're separated from. So fire from any side is the same fire, just that the proportion of heat may be different. The physical amount of fire might be different. Some might be a huge bonfire, some might be a small fire like a candle. But we cannot deny it is all fire. So Bhavani means, as we said, this whole universe, including the bodies of you and I, of all the beautiful flowers, of everything possible, is Bhavani. Now, this Bhavani comes from Bhava, which is Shiva. So is there not Shiva there? It is, but it comes covered in the package of Prakriti, of nature. So Tulsi is saying, I bow down to Bhavani, and to Bhavani Shankara Vande, and to Shankara, the beneficent one. Now look at this thing. Beneficent. Now if Bhavani, Mother Parvati, is considered to be this manifested universe, where everything we benefit from, health, wealth, assets, education, everything, whatever you like in this universe, whatever everyone likes, and whatever we are pursuing, whatever career, whatever material prosperity we are seeking, all of that considered to be Bhavani. But this Bhavani, which we like, this manifested world, comes from Bhava. It emerges from Bhava, means unmanifested, the source. So is then all that we are enjoying not from the same source, Bhava? Is Bhava not intricately part of Bhavani, fueling Bhavani? Is not the source of power, existence, that is making everything else a possibility? And then, so that is one to think of. Then Shankara, the beneficent one, he who gives benefits, always willing to give, and we constantly receive, we constantly take. So then Bhava, the source, becomes Bhavani, the plenitude, and then we are getting from that plenitude now. He who gives from that plenitude is now called Shankara, the beneficent one. So Bhavani Shankara Vande. Tulsi says, I bow to this Bhavani and Shankara. What they do? It is that very source from which everything is happening. Because from Bhavani, everything is happening. All the things of the universe is taken care of. And Shankara, when everything is manifested, he gives us. In accordance to our efforts, we receive. So how much investment we make, how much effort we put in, so we get appropriate rewards. It will come in the right proportion. So Bhavani and Shankara, one and the same. There is no two existence. When we come to recognize that, that is called Shivraatri. Recognizing that, what is called the one existence. And look how Tulsi, in the use of his words, and of course it's brilliant, it's amazing, he brings forth this high Vedantic philosophical idea of Sanatana tradition into such simplistic way for us to understand. So in Bhavani comes from Bhava, the source. That Bhava is Shiva. When the Bhavani manifests everything now, all the prosperity, and the humans are receiving now, from whom they receive, Tulsi call Shankara, the beneficent one. So Bhava and Shankara, one and the same. Bhavani emerges. So then, is there a separation between Shiva and Parvati? No. Then is there Parvati as a woman separate from Shiva, Shiva a man separate from Bhavani? No. But is Shiva a man? Is Bhavani a woman? When you check it now, you see all merge back only into one existence. In fact, that one existence does not have a gender to it. That is to say, it's not a man or a woman. In fact, it is just pure existence. Recognizing that pure existence for one moment is called Mahashivratri. That is why it is Maha. It is great, because the greatest thing ever possible to make this universe function, and in fact to manifest this universe, that there is nothing greater than, nor equal to. So it is called Maha, the great night, that night when it happens. And we worship it as a linga, the source of that truth. That's why the linga becomes neuter now. It is not a male or female. It is just a source from which all manifest and from which we all receive and towards which we will return. Bhavani Shankarau Vande, Tulsi says, Shraddha Vishwasa Rupinau. They are, he says, Bhavani and Shankara, the Shraddha Vishwasa Rupinau, the embodiment of Shraddha and Vishwasa, of faith and trust. Faith and trust. For this universe to work, everything has to work in the right faith and trust. If not, it will not function. Two pedals on a bicycle, they have to work in the right unity with each other, in faith and trust. Then the bicycle can move. In this universe, everything has to work in a similar fashion. So Bhavani Shankara Vande, they are the embodiment of faith and trust, without which, now if there is no faith and trust in the existence of the Supreme Self, would that deny the fact that it exists? No, but we need that to help us to get there. So Shivratri now, when we do like the puja, the japa, the havan, that the kirtan, and of course the sandesh, they are meant now to grow, to develop, to nurture faith in the bhakta, so he can see this thing differently. Trust in the bhakta, that look, I am seeking the source, building that trust. And when he reaches that source, there's no need for the trust. In fact, trust and faith die away and just the source alone left. That is called Shivratri. That is called the worship of Shiva. So Bhavani Shankarau Vande Shraddha Vishwasa Rupinau Yabhyam Vinana Pashyanti Siddhaswantastamishwara. That without this Shraddha and this Vishwasa, this trust and faith, even the adept, even those who skill in Shastra, even they, Tulsi says, even they cannot perceive the Supreme Self enshrined in their heart. It means to say, and this is what we first started off in, like about 7 discourses. This, I believe, is our 7th discourse so far on this celebration of Shivratri. But sometime earlier we spoke about, first of all, we have to come to know the Shiva, to come to know our pure self. We have to first remove the animal in us. We have to become Pashupati. Lord Shiva is called Pashupati, the one who conquers the animal. So until you conquer your mind, conquer your intelligence, your ego, and conquer all tendencies, you cannot come to know the Supreme Self. You cannot come to know the pure self. Even, he says, even for the adepts. The adepts mean, those who have excelled. Even they, if they do not have the trust and the faith for which Shiva and Parvati embody, they cannot come to know the Supreme Self who is enshrined in their heart. Siddhaswantastamishwaram, enshrined in their heart. So it is necessary then, Shivratri is a field of cultivation of the right values and of the destruction of the wrong values, the pashu, the animal, so that we can come to know our true selves as Bhavani Shankara, one and the same, the Supreme Self. Tomorrow when we meet, we will continue. Until then, may grace of Shiva be with all of us. Om Namah Shivaya.